Hey, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the Rooftops of America live stream tonight on August 18th. I'm your host, of course, Scott Marthaler. Thanks for being here tonight. So, lots to talk about. We'll start from the top. It's funny. My wife and kid were in Nashville for the last 2 weeks, which technically gave me several free days to go out and do what I needed to do. Um, call it the Whitney hangover, but last weekend I had high hopes that I was going to get out to Mount Davis and Hoyt Crest and fly the drone a bit and get some drone footage of both of those. And that didn't happen. I made it as far as the Wawa in Malvern, bought a cup of coffee, filled up my car, got a breakfast sandwich, and realized I was still exhausted. And I went back home, ate those things, and then went back to bed for several hours. But I did manage to get down to Ebright Azimuth and put together a quick little 5 facts about Ebright Azimuth, which then got posted up on Sunday. So it wasn't a complete waste, and I still visited a high point. Before we go any further, today's co-host is Three Philosophers by Omegang. It's their quadruple ale. This is the nitro version, and it's very tasty. Pour smooth. This is my brewery glass, but super smooth, super tasty. They do a pretty good variation of a quadruple, and I've always sort of liked theirs. And Omegang is out of Cooperstown, New York. And why did I choose that beer for tonight? Because while I didn't do anything really substantial last weekend, this weekend, yesterday, I drove up to Saratoga National Battlefield, and I finished shooting all the New York stuff. It's funny, like a couple things real quick. Definitely strongly recommend visiting the Saratoga Battlefield. It was the Saratoga Battlefields is probably more applicable, the battles of Saratoga. It was definitely a really cool historic park. It's free, which is even better, and it was well worth the visit. And, I realized when I was writing the episode for New York in general that I probably didn't need the Saratoga stuff. It was more of a want than a need, which is why I didn't film it in July. But then I realized, I'm like, better to have it than to not. And going up there yesterday and doing the tour and hiking around the battlefield and all that, yeah, it's definitely going to make its way into the New York episode. Sometimes I like to take these little flights fancy, and this is probably going to be one of them. Really cool location to film at. A lot of fascinating history there. So if you ever get a chance, definitely worth checking out. It's got some really stunning views too of, both the Hudson and, the Adirondacks off in the distance. I've been corrected several times to Adirondacks. I keep saying in my little Wisconsin ism sneaking out, Adirondacks. But it's the Adirondacks. So, yes, it was a cool place. But went up there, filmed, took 4 hours to actually do it, considering I didn't have the dialogue. I was like, all right, I can knock this out in an hour or two. But it turned out to be much more involved than I thought. But the battlefield is so cool, and it was easy to let the time burn by. So if you get a chance, if you're up in New York, if you're heading that way up to Montmarcy, and you have the opportunity to stop, I would encourage it. So let's see what we got going on. Hey, Archie, no live stream last week. Only the one 2 weeks ago. So you missed nothing. It's good to see you, Archie. I'm glad you're doing well. David, good evening to you as well. And yes, the beer is quite tasty. Archie, what I noticed with Harvard was that altitude killed the appetite, but when you're back down at sea level, it certainly comes back up. That is true. I used these last 2 weeks with my wife being gone to promptly fall off any semblance of a diet I may have and made a lot of poor choices with my food, but it sure tasted good. Hey, Bill, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. Surprisingly, while the beer is from Cooperstown, I've never been there. I would like to get there at some point to see the Baseball Hall of Fame and just in general. But it's one of these places that I've never got around to getting there yet. Hey, Traveling Around Man, I'm glad you're here. Good evening to you as well. Hey, Eric, hope you're doing well. So I will say there was a couple things that actually came out of that trip yesterday, that quick little day trip, that one of them in particular has been sort of rattling around my brain since then, is I realized that once I put out New York, that's going to be it. Like, that's episode 41. Just sort of crazy to think about. Like, there's this whole body of work. 40 episodes, or like 40 states are completed. Not all of them to where I want it, but, you could stand it up and say, hey, here it is. And so there's only 10 state episodes left, 13 if you consider the territories. That really sort of was a thought that I, really stuck with me. Like, wow, we've come a long way. There's been a lot. It's not the years, it's the mileage, as Indiana Jones would say. But it really is been. I think I might end up taking a slight detour and writing maybe an essay related to that. That final 10, and I don't know if it means anything in particular, but it's really interesting to look back and say, wow, that's a lot of stuff covered. There's been a lot of work that went into all that, and maybe take a moment to reflect on that. So there might be a slight detour before New York comes out. But the good news is New York is now officially, like, all the live footage is shot. It's in the can, which is a great feeling. New York was, I know I talked about it before, but it really was sort of a proving ground. It was the hardest solo effort I've ever done, both filming and hiking wise. Like, there was a lot. It was I don't want to say it was a capstone, but looking with what I've got left, I don't see myself on any new episodes doing any of the new stuff solo, like filming wise, or hiking wise. Like, every state high point left will be accompanied, and the same with working with the crew. Now there'll probably be a solo effort or two if I go back and I'm going to reshoot Illinois. That would be most likely by myself. But all the remaining 8 is all going to be accompanied. So it was really interesting to sort of finish New York. Like, it was a major achievement to hit that number and to be able to do it by myself, and to prove, I'm not sure what I was trying to prove as a filmmaker, but there was a good feeling going around that. Nicholas, where in the Adirondacks was Theodore Roosevelt when he learned about McKinley's death? He was at Lake Lake Tear of the Clouds. They bushwhacked in from Tawahoose, one of those spellings. They bushwhacked up. They actually made it to the summit, and they were on their way back, and they were taking a lunch at Lake Tear of the Clouds when, I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but there was a guy that hiked all the way up there, told him that, oh, McKinley's on his deathbed. Wasn't dead yet, but he was definitely had taken a turn for the worse. And it's a pretty remarkable story. Roosevelt then leaves his family and the party, and then with him and the guy, they head all the way back. And once he gets back to the lodge, they basically take they do this carriage run where he switches these carriages, or they're not carriages, more like buckboards or wagons, as they race from there down to can't think it North Camp to the train station. But it's this epic ride, and it's the rain's coming down, and in some ways he's lucky. They're lucky they didn't die, but he finds out McKinley has passed when he reaches the rail station. So in that madcap journey to the train station, McKinley dies along the way. So Roosevelt becomes president for all intents and purposes on that wild journey. So it's this great. It's funny that particular thing, that little journey, is not more well known, because it speaks so much about Roosevelt's character and his, he knew that he knew he had to get to Buffalo, and so that was non-negotiable. We were not going to wait. We were not going to we're not going to take a day. We're not going to wait for the storm. I have to get there. And that whole indomitable Teddy Roosevelt spirit, we're doing this, and we're doing it now. Damn the weather, damn the roads, we're going for it. And he does. And I want to say he's in Buffalo the next day, later that day, because I think he gets to the rail station at 1 a.m, something like 3, whatever. But by middle of the day, the next day, he is in Buffalo. And he's sworn in as president. In fact, it happened so fast that they don't even get a photo or anything of it. So, because they could have easily, not easily. The photography was not quite in its infancy. It was more advanced than that, but they probably could have got something. So, okay. Let's see. So hopefully that answers your question, Nicholas. That was sort of a roundabout way. If you don't mind me asking, do you write up your expenses off? So there is an umbrella. There is Big Man on a Hill Productions is my LLC. So there is that business side of things. So that answers your question is yes. So how about shooting an episode with fellow high pointers? Good question, Fred. I've gone, I know other folks have asked. I think Archie has, recommended that I sit down and interview other high pointers at points. And I'm still working it around. I think I would like to do something like that. As a location thing, I am open to collabs. I know Ron and I have been going back and forth about figuring something out, maybe in Delaware. And hopefully that works. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so it would be, I'd also like to actually, if I can get to the convention, I think I'd like to do a roundtable or two. So in my day job, one of the things I have done in the past is I interview a lot of stakeholders, and I've done focus groups. And, this is for more public affairs related things, or, more contentious issues. But it would be fun to facilitate a high pointer panel or to do something like that, have those conversations. So I'm definitely open to the idea. Right now, it's one of these things that it's I have to give it more thought on how I'd want to do it where I think would be interesting. I know there's people out there like Lauren Toner has a great high pointing podcast, and she does an excellent job. And I don't know if I can do better than her, and I don't necessarily want to. I don't know if that makes sense. Like she's doing a great job. I don't. What can I provide that would be different than that? Um, so I don't know. I would like to find an interesting hook to do something with that. So, um, okay, David, I went to Black Mesa and went to the driving. The are only they're pretty close to the start of the trail at Black Mesa Nature Preserve. There, do you write off your travel expenses? Yes, it's a business expense. So those are it's interesting. We're not going to get into the financial structure of Big Man on a Hill productions because there are multiple things in under that umbrella, including Rooftops of America. So there are also dinosaur tracks with footprints that are 6 feet by 6 feet somewhere near Black Mesa in Oklahoma, to the Tri Point, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Colorado marker, which is cool. I feel that I missed out. When I go back and reshoot Oklahoma, I'm definitely going to hit that Tri Point. So I would also probably include the one for Kansas, Colorado, and Oklahoma, since they're relatively close, if possible. But I feel that going back to Black Mesa, I do more of a comprehensive view of Cimarron County, including Black Mesa. A cool idea is summiting the highest low point, there Arikari River in Colorado. I know that a lot of people have done that low point. I want to say it's higher than it's 3,000 some odd feet. So it's higher than easily 20, I want to say 20 state high points, a little bit more maybe. It's the highest low point is definitely higher than most of the stuff. Most of a decent amount of state high points. So, but I was considering what I would do next if I would continue on some of this series in some way or shape or form after I finish the territories, after I finish the states, or even before I finish that. There's other content that might be interesting. And, there's a couple ideas I've always tossed around, like maybe the extra legal territories that had cropped up at times, like the state of Franklin or, the proposed state of Jefferson or things like that. So some of that. Also, I've considered the Gadsden Purchase, which is one of the few things which would have had its own high point. It's a different sort of pickup for the United States than annexing territory. So it's that purchase. So, or the one that we're going to Key West next year for vacation. And what popped in my head is I totally need to do the highest point for the Conch Republic down there, because why wouldn't I? If you're in Key West, you should definitely do that. There it is. Terrible ideas. Conch Republic High Point. Great minds think alike. But another one that I sort of was thinking about as I was driving back down south down 87 towards Philly, looking over at the Catskills, was the highest points in the various ranges. Now, some of them we're going to automatically get, Denali, Alaska Range, Mount Whitney, the Sierra Nevada, or you get those. But the Catskills, Slide Mountain, you never get anywhere close to that. You have to literally go seek that out. So I was thinking that could be a particularly interesting way to expand out. I know people do. Look at this. There you go, Archie. You're right on point. Yeah, it's higher than 24 state and territory high points. That's wild to think about. The highest low point just shows you how high Colorado is. Yeah, Slide Mountain is also a 4,000 footer. Which was part of the reason I was thinking about it. I'm like, that's a substantial peak. But the highest point in the Taconic Mountains, we don't is so there is room for this. Some of them we do pick up. Yeah, Slide and Hunt are the only peaks in Catskills over 4,000 feet. Yep. So, Fred, thank you for doing this and answering questions. We went out to the convention in South Dakota here and hoped you would be there. Maybe, probably not Nevada, unless if I can figure out how to do the basement. If I'm filming Death Valley, Badwater Basin, there is a chance I could be at the Nevada one. West Virginia, yes. I'm committing to West Virginia. So, but yeah, I do need to get to a convention because I feel like I'm getting to the point where a convention could really help bring the community a little bit closer. Bill Meehan, the highest Civil War battle site east of the Mississippi is not far from me in Spruce Knob. I need to probably include that in the redo for Spruce Knob if it's relatively close there. Well, I can make it sound relatively close, or it's one of those flights of fancies. So, would you make a Rooftops episode on a convention? I would shoot it and see what I get, and then try to edit something in. But before I get there to shoot it, I would like a fairly decent concept, an outline, maybe a bit of a storyboard on what I want to get from the convention. I don't. How do I phrase this? I'm nimble enough as a filmmaker that if I had to just start shooting right here, right now to try to get something, I could probably get it, but it ain't going to be good. I would need to give it some thought, like what would make an interesting convention episode. Part of what I would really want to show is the community, the excitement for the hobby, and why people should get involved. I've always one of the underlying planks of Rooftops America from the get-go is, if a guy like me can be doing this stuff, so can you. And it's not exclusive. It really, we should welcome people in and share this niche thing that we do. That's wild, weird, and wonderful. And you're going to see parts of America you never would have. You guys have heard all this before. What was that High Point podcast? Lauren Toner is the host. Put her name in the chat. I gotta actually look the name up. And I'll put it in the chat or the description once I find it. But so that's a roundabout way of, yes, I would like to do something, but I need to have a plan before I get there. The other problem is when I'm shooting that convention, finding out this is where my PAO comes out. Do I need people to sign waivers? Do I need, what are the, like, if I was going to shoot something for the VA, anybody I put on camera has to sign a waiver, including myself, especially if I'm getting it studio time. So there's all that. But it would be cool. I mean, I know a lot of YouTube content plays fast and loose with that. I got no problem if people put me on film if I'm in a public place. That's totally cool. Because, hey, guess what? I'm a public affairs officer. I'm sort of a public figure. And I'm doing this. And I'm just, it gets weird. And so it's part of the reason why, it's another reason I keep a relatively tight hold on what shows up on camera. So that's a long answer for that, Archie. I hope I took you like all around for that. So, what are some of your county high points, or some of your Ultrastar? Was that county or country high points you would do? Um, for country high points, always want to do British Isles, including Ireland. Um, I've always wanted to do Japan. I love Japan. I always thought Japan was really interesting, and after spending, it's been 30 years, but that year in Okinawa was formative, and I think Japan is one of my favorite places. So those two for sure are country high points that I'd love to do. I would also really like to do Germany. I'd really like to do. So this is where it gets weird. I like to sort of go off to the slightly unbeaten path here, like go sort of pick up some of the ones that other like people wouldn't really necessarily want to go to. Like the one in Suriname has, ever since I first saw it, I was like, that looks awesome. That would be fun to climb. Um, so uh, I also, this isn't, I don't think it's the high point of Ecuador. I don't think it is, but Chimborazo in Ecuador is on my list. Like that is the holy grail for me. That's the one um, that I would like when I finish all this out. I want to have climbed that. Um, yeah. So for me, I don't necessarily feel like going to the top of Brazil and having to, you know, I'm getting a little longer in the tooth, and some of this is a young man's game. So there are certain countries that I've always thought are really intriguing, um, and I would love to do the Balkans. Um, I'd love to do a lot of stuff in Central Europe. I've always found Central Europe very interesting as the crossroads that it is. Um, the highest point in Poland would be interesting. And why do I say that? Because I would not only just go there to Poland for that, but I'd also go there to work on a documentary I've been like writing an outline on I'm gonna get his name wrong. I always get that. Hold on. I can show you the book. On Thaddeus Kosciuszko. Um, he's a fascinating figure in the American Revolution, and he's a national hero in Poland. And he really is. Like, I'd love to actually shoot a documentary on him. Um, I don't tend to. There's just something he appeals to me. So, Ojos del Salado in Chile looks like a cool peak. It probably is. When I started this, I know we talked about this a couple episodes back, but there was a Rooftops of the World concept that looked at the Balkans, um, looked at Northern Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya might be a bridge too far, but still. Um, there was stuff for the Caribbean. There was the Dominican Republic. Actually, that's another. Before I forget that, both Dominican Republic. I can't think of the name of the peak right now. It's the tallest peak in the Caribbean. And then, yeah, Chad's probably right out. You get shot in Chad. I have no. That would require a whole lot of heavy lifting to make that one a reality. Um, but so Japan, British Isles. There was, looking at Australia. I know. I want to say Eric, if he's still on, he just did the highest point in Australia not too long ago. So, but yeah, it was. Um, it really did look more at the concept of what would be interesting, what would be cool. Um, Scandinavia was on there to include places like the Faroe Islands. Um, so, yeah, I mean, you sort of hit the head right there. In my view, if I want to do this and pick up some of those country high points, I'd like to do it in a way where the paperwork is not going to be overly burdensome to make it real. Um, so, hence the place like, let's go to the Netherlands, which ironically would take you to the Caribbean. Uh, at least these days. I want to say it's on St. Martin. Um, Somebody will correct me in the chat, but you could do this fun like two-part episode of the highest point in the Netherlands. So, um, oh, Nicholas, I've done Fair Islands High Point, most beautiful. That is a great vote of it's a great vote to do it. So yeah, so Saba there you go. That would be cool. Great, and I'll take that recommendation, Nicholas, for Faroe Islands. I thought at one point it would be really cool to put together an episode of Orkney, Shetland, and the Faroe. I know Orkney and Shetland fall into, British domain, and I want to say, is the Faroe Denmark? Can't remember. I know it's Scandinavian, more oriented that way, but it still would be working that chain of islands. But to get back, we totally went off track to where I was going, but I do feel like getting the picking up some of those high points, like the highest point of the Ozarks, the highest point of the Bostons, because Arkansas, that's in the Ouachita range. There's those other two ranges. So it would be an interesting way to continue to explore the rooftops of America without necessarily limiting it to geographical boundaries. So there you go. Saba, St. Martin, St. Bartholomew, gratification 10 out of 10, 10. Yes. Nice. But yeah, so I don't know. That just sort of speaks a little bit to how it's part of the reason I got into high pointing in the first place, because I find places like Hoosier Hill in Indiana absolutely fascinating to me. Or, digging into the mystery of Ebrad Asmuth, why it has the name it has. It makes no sense, but I love it. So, I shouldn't say it doesn't make sense. It does make sense from a very particular view, but it does not designate, like, it's not something you would name a high point. It makes no sense as a high point name. It does make sense as to shoot that round border, but that's a whole different story. So, but yeah, this was supposed to be the episode of, hey, we're doing Maine in September, but it's already 9:04. I think the two craziest country high points, Myanmar and Bhutan. Yeah, so good luck with Myanmar. And I don't even know, how you'd go about visiting Bhutan. I know you probably could, but but I also feel like I'm in the point now where I'm like, I need to sort of make this a little easy as best I can. So, hence the reason some of the ones, like, I would love to go to the highest point in Mongolia. Why? Because Mongolia is fascinating to me. Everybody I've ever met from Mongolia is some of the happiest, most joyful people I've ever met. They're awesome, and I would love to go there. Yes, terrible ideas. You got to pick your battles with this stuff. You can't do everything, especially since nobody's handing these sacks full of money to go to these places. So until that happens, I'm definitely picking the places of most interest to me that appeal to me. And so what makes a position or what makes a thing appeal to me usually has a lot to do with the history of the place, or legends, stories, myths. Greece is on the list. Like, God, Olympus. How could you not want to go to Mount Olympus? Um, I feel like if I ever retire and if I expatted to Greece, I would spend my days charting boats to High Point every island in the Aegean. Never run out. So it's one of these things where, yeah, you're absolutely right. Terrible. You got to pick your battles. So, but considering there's so many ways to High Point, it's not a bad position to be in. So I've never had a bad. Well, I shouldn't say I've never had a bad experience. I've never had an experience on a High Point where I regretted going there. That's a better way to put it. So, um, what about Katahdin? Hey, guess what? Next month, um, Matt, my best friend Matt, is coming out, and we are going to do Katahdin, and we're shooting for. I want to say it's the. Hold on, I can tell you. We're shooting for Friday, third week of September. So, the plan is. The 20th. So he comes out on the 18th. We head up to Maine on the 19th. We go for the 20th. Right now, we're looking at stepping off at Roaring Brook and hiking over and going up Saddle. So I want to say it's Chimney to Saddle, and that's the one we're looking at. We've gone back and forth about this. September can be weird in Maine. We all know this. I want to capitalize my chance at success here. And Matt is, he's living in Wisconsin these days. So I want to make it an enjoyable experience for him too. So, yeah, Millinockettum, nice. Hey, at least it'll be beautiful. So that's the plan right now. Now, it's all predicated on the fact that we're not Mainers. So guess what? We'll probably end up doing the gateway, but we'll see. I got an alarm set for the 4th, or what is it, the 6th at midnight, 12:01. So if there's any Roaring Brook parking passes still left, I'm going to get it. So that's the plan. Hopefully a successful day on Friday. And then Saturday, well, when we get up there Thursday, we'll film. As soon as we get there, we'll start filming stuff. Friday will be basically all day on the mountain, filming everything we possibly can. And then, nice. That's great, Terrible. That's actually, that's good to hear. Can you tell me what day or what month, by chance, when you did it both those times? Oh, even better. That gives me a lot of confidence. So cool. Awesome. Man, you guys are coming through tonight. But then, yeah, September would be considered the off season at Katahdin. Unfortunately, the leaves are starting to turn, so there could be people wanting to do that autumn hike. So, so there's that. So we want to We'll do the hike on Friday, come back out, film Saturday for the first half of the day, and then head back to Philly. So we'll see how it is. All right. David, I'd like to see the rooftops. It's funny, me and my friend Kim, who lives in Blackwell, Oklahoma, we're just talking about Kavanaugh? Kavanaugh? It's a French, it was based on a French word, but I know that means nothing. The highest hill in the world. Yes. So we were literally just talking about that, like going to Oklahoma to film that hill. It would be footage I would use for the larger Black Mesa episode. The Grand Mesa, the largest mesa in the world, Colorado, is 11,000 feet. I'd do that. We were actually talking about doing the Manitou Incline, which is one of the largest, longest, highest elevated staircase, whatever, in the world. So now back to Maine real quick before I forget. October 15th is usually the hard cutoff. Yeah, I feel like, I don't want to say I'm pushing it at that late in September, but I definitely feel the dice rolling around my head a little more at that part of September than I would say around the beginning. I mean, I think of, I remember that growing up in Wisconsin, the earliest I saw snow was the first day of fall. And it wasn't just a little bit, it was a lot of it. And so I feel Maine is in that same sort of boat. The weather can go sideways. And it's more willing to go sideways in September, especially as the month drags on, than it is other times. So, but what I'd love to throw to the chat is if you guys have any recommendations. Maine is one of the 4 states I've never been to. So, any recommendations that you would have, I would greatly appreciate them. I don't even have really much of a list. The other 3 are Montana, Idaho, and Alaska. Technically Hawaii, but I stayed in the airport for 8 hours. If it was sky these days, I would have went out. But I was young Marine, and I was terrified of leaving the airport. Yeah, Acadia National Park, I almost think I'd go back. That's like on the list, but it's worth a trip on its own where I can give it the full experience. What is it? It's Cadillac Mountain, but that's not the high point in that park. It's not Deseret, is it? Whatever it is, I want to hike it. Stephen King house. I do like King. I don't know if I said this, but when you guys hear just having some general fun. I don't know if I said this here, but I must be one of the younger guys here. Or Justin High Point stuff in general. Found out about it when I was 19. Did one high point when I was nice. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here anyway. So I'll start with thanks for being here. My dad's remaining was Arkansas, Mississippi, Maine, Alaska. Interesting. You could pick up Arkansas and Mississippi pretty easy. Maine and Alaska, man. Both sides. 17. Archie, how old are you? You're a young buck too. You young bloods here. Yeah, Mount Desert Island is the name of the island. Cadillac Mountain is the... Okay, never mind. I was wrong. Cool. Archie, congratulations. Welcome to 18, man. Speaking of which, will Acadia be a filming location in Maine? Probably not. Logistics-wise, it doesn't quite work. Acadia is one of these places where I feel like I can't give it the attention it would need. So letting you in on something. Acadia is this national park that I have been dreaming about ever since I was like 15. I saw pictures of it, and I can't remember where. It wasn't National Geographic, but it was something on national parks, and I saw the pictures of Acadia, and I just thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. And I've never been there, and I've always wanted to go. And I feel like next year will probably be when it happens. But I can't do Katahdin and Acadia. I'd need more time. And all I have really is if Matt's coming on Thursday and he's flying out on Sunday, we got 3 days. And Katahdin is not exactly the easiest peak. So concessions have to be made. Now, I will say there is a caveat to this. If we get up there Thursday and I'm on point and I can knock out most of that script, and we do the hike and we feel decent coming back on Friday, and then we have all day Saturday, I might actually not go to Acadia, but I might try to make it out to what is it, Quaddy? Quaddy Island or Quaddy Point. So who knows? We'll see. So Ultrastar, I'm 21. Okay, nice. Sorry, I didn't understand what the 17 was. Still, young guy. Glad you're here. I'm at 43 states, want to get 50 by 50. That was the original goal for me, 50 by 50, but it's going to be 50 by probably 52. So I'm cool with that. There is some contention about where light hits the U.S. versus Katahdin or some island off the coast. It's not Katahdin, unfortunately. It doesn't have the elevation. I actually was just reading about that as I was writing the script. It is a fun story, though. So that's why I want to learn. I'm mountaineer primarily for high points. Nice. In the Millinocket area, I'll be checking out some links. Is that the eastern point? Yeah, I think Quaddy Point is the easternmost point in the contiguous U.S. By Jages Lake, Herd Pond, Endless Lakes, and also to Cotton Fun. My third time up there, but I can't get enough of it. I've heard that. Like, people are absolutely enraptured with that mountain. Just speaking from a geological perspective, from what I've been reading, that makes sense. It is the biggest thing there. It dominates the landscape. It sort of has this lonely mountain effect. Because while it's sort of thrown in with the Appalachians, it's its own thing. It's a monadnock. So it's slightly isolated. Yeah. Easternmost gets weird with where 180 lives. Well, that's why I said contiguous. Oh, yeah. The AT will definitely be mentioned. You can't talk about Katahdin without mentioning the Appalachian Trail as the terminus for the U.S. portion. I know the international one continues on, but it's such a big deal. You cannot not talk about it. I know I've mentioned it also with Klingman's Dome, because that's the high point for the AT, is as you trek over Klingman's. Was Springer Mountain an episode idea? Not really. No. And if I was going to do something on the AT, yes, definitely, absolutely. But it never, when I was talking about Brasstown Bald, the only other mountain that I really thought was interesting was Roan. I think it's Roan Mountain. I mean, that particular area up there, though, there's a wealth of geological wonder. Amazing view of Katahdin over Millinocket Lake. Nice. I've been trying to find, one of the things I'm looking for right now that I need to bone up on before I get there is where I can fly the drone and get decent drone footage. I do think Baxter's restricted. I'm not going to break that rule. But if I can get enough standoff distance, then, I'll definitely look for those spots. Lake in foreground with Katahdin looming over the back is some of the best in Maine, and I know I've seen the picture of it. Wow, it's 9:20. So we probably will talk about Maine a couple more times before this happens. It's surprisingly the next time we do this, it will be September. To summarize what I said, I discovered High Point is at 17 and want to do 50 states. Nice. That's awesome. It does clear it up. I was, um, but I'm glad you're. It doesn't change the point. I'm glad you're here. So, all right, folks. We're gonna. I think we meet up next. It'll be the 1st of September if I got that right. Yeah, that's crazy. August is flying by. Um, Thanks for all being here tonight. Thanks for a robust chat, and I really appreciate it. And be safe out there, folks, and have a great remaining August. And I'll see you when I see you.